Well, I've been working for 3 weeks more than I was expecting on the F100. We're close, but we're at a bit of a standstill with that, so it's finally time to do my upgrades that I've been talking about on my BDX. So we got a bunch of cool upgrades to do in this video. We're going to be adding smoke to the aircraft. We're going to be adding a Sky Candy landing light setup and wing setup and all that kind of stuff. So lots of cool stuff there. And we also are going to incorporate some unilights into the system as well too, just in certain areas and stuff. So have some pretty cool upgrades planned for the BDX. Tucson's in a week and we'll be headed to Tucson. So that's why I want to get this done on the BDX. So let's dive in. Oh, I'm also adding a Pitot tube to the BDX as well too. And I know lots of people have been asking how to add the Pitot tube to the BDX, and I've already got it planned out and it should be a good system. So let's dive in. If you haven't heard me say this before, or you haven't heard anybody else say it, the BDX is hands down the best flying plane I and many people have ever flown. So this is my BDX. We have a nice clean layout in here and we want to keep it as such. So all the additions that we'll be adding will be hidden additions, sort of. Now the reason for this is right now our BDX has 3 batteries. So we've got 2 5,000 milliamp 2-cell LiPos for the receiver and gear, and then we've got a 3-cell running the turbine. Well, you can see all the weight we added in the nose there to get it balanced. Well, now we'll be able to take some of that weight out, put another battery in there, and use that battery to run our lighting system and also our smoke system. Now, the lighting system from Sky Candy, the way Sal does my systems up for me, he usually puts them at 3-cell LiPo. So there's 3-cell LiPo going in, works for various things, and it's just a great system, works very well. And so that's why we'll be using 3-cell LiPo for the smoke pump, which is good, and also for the lighting system. So when we incorporate the unilight portions, we'll be also adding the extra resistor to the lights, which allows you to operate it at 3-cell LiPo. So lots of fun things planned for this, so let's dive in. So first thing we have to do is we have to get the wings on, get the gear down, and I want to weigh the nose and get the layout on the weight. Reason for that is I don't just want to do another CG, I just want to get it to exactly where it is because it's so neutral. So when we take weights out, add batteries in, we'll be able to get it laid out exactly the same. With all the other additions that we're adding, you know, the smoke tank, the smoke system and everything, that really doesn't affect anything at all. It's just getting that nose weight to balance where it is currently. All right, so BDX is put together, obviously. One of the telltale signs that you know, you kind of get used to on some aircraft, so I know on this aircraft, without the canopy on and no fuel in there, it is very light on the nose. And if we go past the halfway mark like that, it'll drop to the tail. So those are some of the telltale signs that you kind of get used to. But then if you take the canopy and put it on, it makes enough of a difference that so we go to that same location and you'll see the nose drop down, right? So, and then obviously when you add fuel in there, it's a little bit heavier on the nose as well too. So those are just some of the telltale signs. So when we do the switch, obviously we're gonna get our weights and everything figured out, but we do have that to look at as well too. All right, so we got the aircraft under the scales or on the scales. And the point of this is to give us a return point here, right? So you can see here our nose, 2.58 pounds. There's the weight on the mains, total weight 46.19. So I don't suspect we'll add a ton of weight. We might make it to 47, but basically what we're looking at when we're done is we want to have that same number on the nose, so 2.58 pounds. So I've got the lights laid out there. We'll take a look at that in a second, but I'll show you kind of what we're working with here. So I've seen some people be concerned with having everything hidden underneath the board. Well, the board is very easy to get up. That's the way I designed this. So just tuck the board up out of the way, complete access to working on it. But of course it's invisible. All the junk's invisible. All the equipment is invisible when you're working on the plane. So a couple important things. We're gonna add the Pitot tube to the nose. There's nowhere to plug the Pitot tube in. So right now the Chicoy telemetry lead comes to the primary EXT port. So we'll add a E2 expander. So it's just a little expander that will spread those ports out. So then we'll be able to add the telemetry from the turbine as well as the M-speed sensor. So that's thing number one. We do have some open ports here on our central box. So we've got 13, 14, 15, and E1R3 is open. So we've got some open ports to be able to control our smoke and lighting system. I think we are going to mount the smoke pump, which is a Sweewind smoke pump. Now I love these things. These are available on our website. They're like, I think they're listed for $100. And look how tiny those things are, guys. They fit anywhere. Runs off of a 3-cell or 2-cell LiPo. The flow rate is the same for both batteries. Of course, you've got your servo lead here, which is the plug-in which controls this little thing, but these things are amazing. So tiny, perfection. So because that's so tiny, I think we'll be able to mount that underneath the tank. Keeps it nice and simple. We've got our smoke tank, which is kind of a normal factory thing with the BDXs that mounts underneath the turbine. So that's already figured out. Now the only thing is the lighting setup. So when we're adding the lighting setup, the primary thing that we're doing here is the Sky Candy stuff. So some of the things that we're doing specifically on this plane is leading edge lights and probably gear lights. I'm still, I have some different ideas on the gear lights. So leading edge lights are a 1-inch and a 7/8 light, and that mounts in the leading edge. We did this previously on the BDX build, the first one that we did. Sal at Sky Candy does all my wiring harnesses up, and it just makes everything so simple to operate. So thank you, Sal, for organizing all that stuff. I love these things because it's just super simple. And then of course we've got our instructions and templates and everything in here as well. So this is the layout for the BDX, so it's already done. So essentially you tape this piece of paper to the wing, cut out this shape, and then you cut out that shape on the leading edge of the wing. So it makes it very easy. You've got the inserts, which are these guys here. So those go in the pocket. And then our actual lenses, which are these guys right here, go over top of the wing and cover the lights. So really excited for this. Now some of the other things that we're adding in here, like I talked about the Unilight system, I want to go a little bit crazy on this plane, and I just figured I had some of this Unilight stuff in stock, so let's use it. Nez. No. No. Jeepers cat, you're weird today. So we've got some Unilight stuff to add to the mix. So basically the key thing here is our controller. So I've got a spare 4-channel controller, and this can run off 3-cell LiPo. We've got our tip lights, which are these guys. So those go on the wing tips. And I was thinking about adding this guy here to, this is a very bright beacon. I was thinking about adding this guy, which is a white flasher back here on that surface. Now that kind of sucks a little bit because obviously the plane's already together, and I think we'll need to split the fuselage to get that run properly. I don't know yet, we'll have to see. And then I was thinking about adding that other strobe right on top. So just a couple different ideas. I'd like to put something on the bottom. The downside is I transport this plane in a fuse bag pretty much all the time. And it sits right on the entire flat portion of the plane. So really doesn't make a lot of sense to add something to the bottom. So anyways, that's what we're thinking about. That's what we're working with. So still thinking about the lights and how to do this. So I'll give you an idea what I was thinking about. So we've got the gear lights, and I was thinking about putting one on the nose and maybe using our gear lights and putting them on the intakes. I think that would be kind of cool, but I'm still deciding on that, so I'm gonna hold off on that for now. So we'll move on to working on the pitot tube. Now, the struggle with the BDX is if you look in the very end, there's like a structure piece of former in there that the tray mounts to. So that piece of structure sits about here. So if I look in through the inside, you can kind of see through the pink, this color. So if I run my finger like that, I can see exactly where that structure is. Now, if we take our pitot tube that we would install it basically sits on the other side of the structure. So fairly straightforward. We just need to create a big enough hole that we can get this through and guide it into position right there, and obviously have our tubes going through. So first thing to do is drill a reasonable size hole kind of in the center of that structure right there. Probably have to get some drill bit extensions and stuff, but that is step number one. All right, so used a drill bit extender here. Now, not the best quality tool, but it does stuff like this very well. So we got our step drill installed there. I went about halfway on that step drill bit setup, so it's not overly huge, but there's our hole right there. So just enough to get our pitot tube through and guide it to the nose. So now what we need to do is drill our hole in the nose of the aircraft. So I want to be right in the tip of the nose, and we're only going to have a couple millimeters of pitot tube sticking out in that nose area. So I'm going to get that done next. Now the pitot tube itself, generally I think it's a 1/8 drill bit that I use to drill that out, but it just is a little bit bigger than the pitot tube, and then that allows us to put some CA on this guy and get it stuck in place. All right, it's time for another episode of Tip Time, and this Tip Time is brought to you by Trusty Bent Screwdriver. Trusty's got a little hangy thing on there. Also brought to you by David Jet Guy. I learned this from David Jet Guy. Smart guy, that David Jet Guy. Pitot tube install. So a scenario like this, we've got our structure there, we've drilled a hole through it. How the heck do we get this pitot tube into the port? So you take a piece of safety wire, we run it through, and now that safety wire is in the end of our nose. And now all we need to do is, while we're pushing this through, I need to open up the hole just a little bit more, because our hole that I put in that former is like this, and the pitot tube's not going to come through like that, and the back of the pitot tube's still through the woodwork there. But this is a wicked tip. Come back and I'll show you guys in a second. All right, so I just drilled that hole at a bit of an angle, so it's going to be loose now. We've got our pitot tube on the end of our safety wire, and hopefully this time, there we go. I think that's going to work. There we go. Awesome. So pitot tube, super simple, into the hole. And sometimes you have to be creative to make things work. So I took some goop and used a thin screwdriver and pushed it through the hole, but I want that goop to flow to the end of the pitot tube. So that's the way to do it right there. So the fly right stand worked out well for that, and just added one weight ball to the nose to hold it down. So we'll leave that for a little bit, and we will get it leveled out again, and we'll start probably dismantling the turbine to get our smoke system queued up. All right, so made a smoke stick holder here. This is a nozzle from DreamWorks, so it doesn't have any of the mounts or anything like that. Some of the other nozzles I get sometimes from like Aeropanda, it's got a threaded piece on the end, which is kind of nice, but this is the only one we have, so that's what we'll use. So we'll put 4mm Festo over top of this and use double safety wire. But this basically, I took 2 pieces of wood, CA'd them together, and then used my drill press and drilled a 1/8 inch hole through there. And then we'll wick some CA into that, and it'll hold it nice and solid. And then what happens is this gets mounted just beside the turbine. We'll have to add some bends to it, and should work out quite well. And then we can screw this down to the former structure that holds the turbine. All right, so we can pull weight out of the nose now and figure out how much we need to pull out. So I'll show you our battery load before. So we had a 5,000 7.4, 5,000 7.4, and a 4,000. Actually, I was using a smaller one, but I was going to use the 4,000 this year. So, but this is basically our battery load. And so this is what was in there previously. Now we'll be adding another battery. So we're going to add a 3300 LiPo for the additional items. So this is the amount of weight initially that we can take out of the nose. Now I don't suspect we'll be able to take much more out because we're not really adding a ton. I mean, we're going to be adding another battery plug, some additional wiring to the front, but yeah, it's really almost nothing. So we'll just completely focus it based on that battery because the CG on this plane right now is perfection. So, but of course we can readjust that afterwards because we've got all the numbers previously, or that we measured previously. So this is our battery setup that we had previously, or we're running the plane off of. So what we're going to do is weigh the amount, weigh the battery that we're going to be adding to this system, and that's going to take tell us how much we can take out. Now I'd love to use another one of these 4000s. The downside is that the size difference. So the 4000 is quite a bit thicker than the 3300. So I couldn't add another one of these 4000s and use it in my battery holder. That's why I'm using the 3300. Ultimately, it's not that big of a deal, but this is the weight that we'll be basing it off of. So we'll be taking out 270 grams out of the nose weight. So this is the strip of weights that I used in the nose. So we've got 60-ish grams per strip. So that gives us an idea how many strips we need to take out. So if we go with 4 strips, that of course is 240 grams. If we take out another strip, that would be 280. So we'll probably take out 5 strips, which will compensate a little bit for the additional wiring that we're going to be putting in the nose too. And there's the weight we took out. So we got 272 grams that we've taken out of the nose. All right, so I'm trying to get all the hard stuff done here first before we get into like the wings and what I call the easy stuff. So I've taken the turbine out, undid the bolts for the pipe. Obviously the pipe won't come out because we have our front structure here kind of holding the pipe in, especially on that side, which is fine. So I'm going to take the bolts out that hold the fuselage together, which are these guys. And my hope is that we're able to, once the fuselage is kind of split, there's a little bit of wiggle room there with our wires, then we'll be able to get that fuselage apart enough where I can get the pipe out. And once we get the pipe out, then I can mount that light in the back. If I wasn't doing that light in the back, none of this stuff would need to happen. All right, so we got the pipe out. It wasn't super terrible. I just had to split the fuselage. My wires, I didn't put a connection here, so there's only a little bit of extra wire. So I actually split the fuselage, rotated the fuselage like this, pulled the pipe out, and then put it back to work on it just because it was pulling on the wires. So anyways, I'm not a huge fan of putting a connection there, of course, unless you were planning on splitting the fuselage on a regular basis, but regardless. So we got the pipe out, took the cone off, and glad because now we're able to put a light back here. So I'm going to put that strobe on the back. Now, one thing with this strobe is, I can't remember when I got it, but it's only 3S, right? So what they've done here is they've put both capacitors in there already, so that's just something to be aware of. But it's going to get very hot, so it says use heat sink, check temperatures. So I did, the heat sink doesn't come installed, so I did put the heat sink on, put a little bit of CA in there. I'm just putting up a connector here and getting my wire sorted out so we can get that run and get that dealt with. So this is the reflector that we're going to use on here as well, and we'll just goop that all in place. All right, rear flasher is all wired and set up here, so extended the wire, of course, and now we're going to get that installed to our location where I put our lighting controller. So our Unilight controller is here. Also going to put our Sky Candy stuff underneath the tank as well too. Obviously that keeps it hidden. Not exactly serviceable, but we don't need to really get to anything ever. So that's where the location that we're going to run that lead for the rear light forward to. So back end of fuselage is put back together. We've got pipe put back together, fuselage bolted together, tanks in place for the smoke, and we have run some lines here. So this is our pull line from the smoke tank, this is our vent from the smoke tank, and this is the that's the line that was in there before for the turbine. So fuel pumps, or smoke pumps, sorry, is going to mount right there. So it's going to be just visible in front of the tank, but it wouldn't fit underneath the tank because there's not enough height. So because of the round profile of the tank was actually sitting on top of it. So I've made up a mount here for the smoke pump. This is just a piece of ply, and we're going to glue that to the bottom of the fuselage, and then the pump's removable with the 2 screws. So we'll get this glued in next, and then once that's cured, we'll be able to paint it. All right, so a little more progress. We've got everything bolted down that we need to have fastened down. I'll run you guys through this. So obviously we've got our smoke pump. Now the way I've run this is this line here, 6mm line, comes from the tank. That goes to a T. The smoke pump pulls from that T, and then this line going forward is our fill line. Now I've run that line all the way to the front, and we're going to have an exact match to the fuel filler, but there's going to be a smoke filler right here, and they'll be labeled, of course. So that's the smoke fill line. And then the output line comes back, goes up to our on-off valve, and then to our smoke nozzle. Now on my smoke systems, I like to add a one-way valve. So this is a one-way fitting, so it allows material to go this direction, but not come back. Reason for that is that helps, I mean, obviously you've got an on-off valve, but that helps prevent the smoke from dripping out. Just one little extra bit of protection. Now, as far as our light system goes, obviously we've got our Unilights mounted, we've got our Sky Candy wiring bundle there, and I've started to run all the leads. So ran the lead from the wing connection. Now we've come up with another connector here, so I just use an Ashlock 6-pin, and this takes care of our lights. So the pocket that receives the lighting stuff here is quite big, so that'll be nice and easy. Now we haven't done anything to the wings yet because I just want to get the fuselage stuff all done, and as long as we've got this laid out properly and controlled and everything, the wing connections will be quite simple. And I'd like to get this all wrapped up, tank put back in, and then we'll start working on the wings. But so essentially we've also got our smoke lead coming here as well too. So there's going to be some, I think, 3 leads, smoke, lights number 1, lights number 2, going to the central box, so we can run those forward, no problem. And then I just added our additional XT60 angled glue down connector to the front plate. Those connectors are available on our website, thelightersideofrc.com. Obviously different colors and styles. There's quite a few different styles that we have as well. I love these glue down angled connectors for a situation like this. They work so well. So obviously silver is receiver, red is turbine, black is accessories. And that cable we've run back to right here. And what I'll do is I'll put an XT60 connector on this end, and then that'll come to right about here. And then what I'll do is make up another accessory cable, so that'll plug into the XT60, and then we'll have one lead feeding our Unilights, one lead feeding our Sky Candy, one lead feeding our smoke pump. So that's a very simple solution. The other thing I'm happy with on this plane install is we really haven't added anything to the front end. So I haven't added any of these accessory devices near the receiver stuff. Everything is underneath the tank. The only addition, of course, is our 3 lines coming to the central box and our additional power lead going forward. So there's a nice separation there between our radio equipment and the smoke pump and light systems and all that stuff. So it's good separation, also a good use of space. I like that it's hidden as well too underneath the tank. So here's our battery extension or cable, I guess. So the power from the front battery comes to here, and this is right by our devices. So this plugs into the smoke pump, this plugs into the Sky Candy landing lights and light setup, and this plugs into the Unilight setup. Okay guys, so we got our M-speed sensor installed in the front, that wire's run forward, obviously our plugs are done, that's all buttoned up as well. We've got our center section or our electronic section all buttoned up, so that is done. We've got our expander, E2 expander right here, and then we've got our telemetry plugged into that, as well as our M-speed sensor, and that E2 expander goes to our EXT port. So the center section is all buttoned up and 100% ready to go. So I'm going to pop that tray back down, and there's really no reason we should need access to that area again. So that pretty much wraps up the fuselage portion, which is wonderful. We'll screw that down as well. So with the fuselage portion done, other than our filler, we'll get that done as well. Looking great, but it's time to move on to the wings, which are over there. Nez has been guarding the wings, and that's going to be a big step as well. But we've got everything pre-done in the fuselage, so the wing portion should be fairly simple. Essentially what we're doing with the wings is we're doing our leading edge lights, which we have to cut into the wing for, and then we're doing our marker lights on the end, which I've already marked out as well. So that wiring is going to come to this location right here. Some of you observant folk in the next videos in a little bit here might notice my computer sitting in the background. No, I did not get kicked out of the house and now living in the shop. We're doing some renovations to our office space finally. So my computer's out here. And actually, I kind of like it out here because it's less walking to the computer. So anyways, back to the Sky Candy wings and Sky Candy lights going in the wings. So the manual that Sal includes, Sky Candy includes, comes with this amazing template. So very simple instructions. So what you do is, number one, you cut this piece out. Cut out this shape. Done. Done. Then what you do is follow the instructions. So this facing up is for the right wing. This is the left wing. So we're going to flip it over. And you basically line up this corner with that joint right there. We're going to put some clear Scotch tape on here. You roll this over top of the leading edge, and this gives the cutout location for the lenses and all the stuff that is going to contain the lights. Now, I did cover this whole setup before on the original BDX build for Kyle, which was like a high-vis Navy scheme BDX. I showed kind of all these details, so I'm a little bit repetitive on this stuff. So if there's anything you feel like you missed watching this, you can always go back and watch that BDX build series. I think it was video 2 of 3 where it got done. So I'm gonna work on this. And then the other thing is I've got the area marked out for our marker lights on the side. So I'm going to take my Dremel and basically get our marker lights sanded out. And these essentially need to be as wide as the aluminum plus a little bit for the wires. So you can see there how much we're actually going to sand out. So I make this as minimal as possible. Obviously the final result is you want your reflector and everything to cover the slot that you make. And if you are going back and watching that original BDX build series, on that one, I think we ended up using the Sky Candy marker lights, which are nice, tiny little LEDs. Both of them work awesome, but we're just doing the combo setup on this one. All right, so we've got our slot in the end here. This end is wide open to the aileron pocket, and then our leading edge lights here. There's a piece of carbon laminated foam that runs right here. So I just put a small hole through that. And then our Castle Creations BEC is going to sit right in here. And then the wire from this will pair up with the tip wire, and that will go to the root of the wing where the other plug is. And then this guy here, because it's going through a piece of carbon, I wrapped some spiral wrap around it. Also painted our reflectors chrome, so we're letting those cure and do their thing. They're doing pretty good. So we got our wire run to the root of the wing. We have our leading edge lights installed. Now these are gooped in place on the top and bottom edge. And then I spot glued them on the sides with just a little dollop of CA. And then when we cut this out, this one's initially cut. We still have to do a bunch more trimming. But when we cut this out and put our lens on, that little gap there will get filled with more goop when we goop that lens in place. So, but that's kind of what they look like. We have to do some final trimming. Then our wingtip lights installed with goop as well, and they're just taped in place and curing. So while we wait for these things to cure, I'm going to get our wiring done on the root of the wing, and we'll get our aileron cover and aileron hooked back up. But yeah, they look awesome. Very happy. So we got our light receptacle trimmed out, took our lens piece, again supplied by Sky Candy, just slipped that over top. Now what this mark out is the outside of my lens. So I'm going to take this off now and use scissors and cut around the outside of this shape. The orange is essentially going to be our final black painted area, but this is going to determine now our actual final lens shape. And that's what it looks like just after we cut it out. And everything gets a lot smaller when this is all put together nicely. That looks awesome. So next thing to do is to glue this guy in place. We can leave the orange tape on, it really doesn't matter, but what we'll do is we'll get this glued in place, tape it down, and let the shoe goop cure. When we do put shoe goop on here, there will be some that oozes out. That's the beauty of shoe goop. When I glued this lens housing in, there was goop all over the top and the bottom of the wing. That just peels right off, nice and simple. So we'll glue this in place, and then once that is dry or cured, we'll come back and we'll take this tape off, and then we will tape off the area on the lens that we do not want to paint. All right, so both of our lenses are taped in place. This is awesome. I'm really happy with how those turned out. So nice and minimal. I forgot how minimal these were. So yeah, we need to leave these be until tomorrow. And once 24 hours-ish is up, the goop will be nice and cured. And it's best just to leave it be and give it as much time as it needs. Once we pull the tape off, we'll be able just to clean up the edges. So that's pretty much the last thing to do is basically once we pull this tape off, get these guys painted, and then we'll do all of our tests. So yeah, the wings are done other than that. And as far as the fuselage goes, I did up my other plate here for the smoke fill. And now we've got fuel and smoke, of course, matching, symmetrical, and that is wonderful. All right, so it's been 24 hours and we can remove our tape now. So masking tape off first. Once the perimeter tape comes off, then we just go around and remove any shoe goop or goop that has leaked out. Actually, in this case, it's E6000, which is the same product, just a little bit thinner. Like we kind of got lucky on this one. On the other wing I already did before I videoed it. And we had a fair bit of cleanup to do on the other wing. This one, we have zero cleanup to do. So that's what it looks like. Looks good. So now what we do is we tape off the perimeter, and then we tape off where we don't want paint on the lens. So we'll run that in just a little bit, a couple millimeters all the way around, and that hides all the ugly. And we'll get that all taped off, and then we use automotive paint and paint this guy. In this case, we're going to use black. Of course, you could use any color you want, but the black's really going to blend in here. And the only thing we'll see covered up is the black over top of the yellow and silver right there. And here's the other side, the underside of the left wing. All right, and wings are all prepped off, and we got our black shot here. So the black is, that's going to stay is essentially that piece right there. So we'll let that kick off a little bit and dry, and then we'll pull our prep off, and our wing lights should be wrapped up. All right, and there's the finished product with the prep pulled off. So I sprayed it black. I sprayed clear coat over top of it as well too to protect the paint. So now once that cures, if we're polishing up the wing and, you know, cleaning up the bug juice and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to pull the paint off or damage the paint. But that looks wicked. Pretty much seamless. Nice and minimal. Looks awesome. Thank you, Sky Candy, for providing the lights for our kit here. Such a touch of class. And there's what it looks like just before we pull the prep off. All right, so we've got the aircraft obviously on the ground, wings are on, batteries are in place. Have not started this thing up yet with the new configuration. So what I'll do is I'm going to start this up, and the smoke pump may do its thing. So I don't know yet if the smoke pump is set in the correct direction. Yeah, so right now my smoke is on this switch, which is the switch I would normally use for my smoke, but I switched this one to a 3-position switch. So I may have to reverse that depending on how it's gonna work. So I think I still wanna use this for smoke. But anyways, I need to turn this on, and I'm gonna have the smoke channel already queued up. So if I need to reverse it, I can just flip it around and reverse it. So what we'll do is we'll go into our servo setup, into the smoke channel right there, and we're ready to reverse it if we need to when we turn this plane on. So we've got all that ready to go.
Receiver on. Lights on.
Okay, so smoke channel's good. There we go, so that's set.
2 o'clock, American flaps.
Crazy. All right. So.
Lights off.
Oh my gosh. So I've got some reversing and stuff to do on the lights. Those freaking lights are insane. Oh my gosh. The Sky Candy lights are mental, guys. The camera does not pick that up. It is so wild. If you're at an event where I've got this plane, you need to come to an event where I've got this plane. It's mental. All right, guys, so we had one of our Unilights fry itself, which is never a good time. So this is the left Unilight, obviously. You could smell burning electrical, and this resistor right here was crazy hot, and this light's not working anymore. So I was digging through my lighting system and found these guys. Now this is something that Sky Candy provided for me. I think it was on my Huracan, I believe. These were on my Huracan. And I just fired them up on this plug, and they work beautifully. So we're going to install these guys on the wingtips. Yes, they're a little bit bigger, but they are crazy bright. I'll show you what they do here. They're a built-in, they're actually full-scale aviation lights. So they're a built-in color and flasher.
Lights on.
So we've got our red marker light, and then our flasher light and solid LED. So we'll use those guys. We had these, I totally forgot about them. So we'll use them, that's wicked. All right, guys, quick light install on those, and they went in very nicely and easily. So let's turn this guy on, man. This is, I'm actually even more excited for the lights on this plane now. So yeah, so I've got my lights set up. I'll show you how I've got them set up. So we'll turn this on. Anyways, the elevators also aren't hooked up, so that's why there's no elevator control. Basically, with the Sky Candy setup, what I've got, what Sal does for me is he puts some SP06 jetty switches in there. So if we look at our setup here, so we've got lights on 13, Unilights, which is our, I just called our marker lights, on 14. Because we need 2 different controls on the controllers, that's why I've got 2 functions set up. So lights go from -100 to +100, and they turn on. Those are our front marker lights, or our front wing leading edge lights.
Lights off.
The Unilights are controlling all of the other lights. Now, I wasn't sure if the Unilight controller would work with those other marker lights, but they do. So anyways, the travel adjustment on the Unilight controller adjusts what the things actually do. So the marker lights are set to solid, but those marker lights on the wingtips have built-in functions in the lights, which is perfect. So the Unilight controller is just putting power through those guys, and that works out well. So super cool. Very nice. Looks awesome. Those tip lights are even So much better. I think those actually came from my Diamond is what they came from. I can't remember. But yeah, so that's the setup. Looks awesome. Happy that that stuff all works. So we've got our leading edge lights, which are Sky Candy lights. We've got the full scale aviations on the wingtips. We've got a Unilight strobe on the top there, and the big Unilight strobe on the back. All right, so next thing we'll set up is our M-speed sensor. So that of course is now populated in the sensor menu. So we're gonna change that to miles per hour, which is what I use. And of course that also has temperature as well too. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up our call out. When we go to full flaps, I want that to call out our speed every 3 seconds. So we're gonna go to timer sensors, voice output. So every 3 seconds. Okay, so every 3 seconds, our switch is full flaps. Trigger switch, clear. And sensors, check all those. Those are all off. Then we need, what is it called? Velocity.
0 miles per hour.
There we go.
0 miles per hour.
Now if we go off of full flaps, it doesn't call our speed anymore. So let's go here. So I'm going to put that in our menu here. So we're going to take off capacity. So displayed telemetry, we're going to take capacity off, and we're going to put speed. Use double size, move that up. There we go. So now we have speed and fuel. So now if we go to,
Landing along full flaps in Crow, 0 miles
and I'm going to blow in the pitot tube.
0 miles per hour.
And there we go. So other than a turbine run up, which we will do, that is all of our stuff on the aircraft. Now, we do have to set up our smoke pump. All right, so last thing to do is our CG check. Now we have our weights from previously, and we are going to do the exact same thing and get our scales out and put the canopy on and see what this thing comes in at as far as nose weight and total weight. All right, so we've got Bertha here on the scales, and I've got my previous picture queued up. So previously we were 46.19 pounds, 2.58 on the nose. And what we've done this time is we are at 48.42, but we're 2.92 on the nose. So we're 0.4 pounds heavier, 58, 68, 78, 88. 0.3 pounds heavier, 3.5 pounds heavier on the nose than we were previously. So we did gain roughly 2 pounds. I can pull some more lead out of the nose, and but that's what we gained to add the lights and the smoke system. So obviously smoke system, you're adding the tank, you're adding the smoke pump, you're adding the battery, which was offset by the weights we took out, so that kind of a net zero. So there is those pieces to add in. So they're not light pieces. And then all of our lighting setup as well too, wires and all that stuff. So it does add up, but we can take probably another 1 to 2 strips out of the nose. I'm gonna leave it the way it is. It was already very light on the nose, which was totally fine. And we'll fly it, see how it flies, and I can pull 1 to 2 strips out in the future here. So happy. This is going to be a blast to fly. Cool changes on this aircraft. Very happy. All right, guys, and we are getting ready for Tucson Jets. So that's where we're headed in 2 days. We're on our way to Tucson, and this video will come out the last Saturday that we're in Tucson Jets. So we'll have some great flights on the BDX and hopefully some video footage of it as well too. Really happy with the upgrades. I knew I kind of wanted to do this stuff from the very beginning, but when we got this plane, it was a bit of a rush to get it put together for our flying season, and I knew that this winter I would be taking care of these upgrades. So thank you to Sky Candy for sorting us out with our lighting setup. Such a great addition to this BDX. The smoke system, I don't know. Not entirely sold on smoke. I've kind of not had smoke on my aircraft since I got rid of my Carf Tudor, my snowbird aircraft. But it'll be fun to have it on it again and you know, have one plane with the ability to run some smoke fluid through it. So, and this is definitely a good one to do it with. So guys, there's some links down below to Sky Candy's website. If you have any questions, reach out to them. Reach out to Sal. He does all my wiring harnesses custom for me, so it's not something you just go on the website and order. But if you chat with them and you say, hey, can you set my lights up exactly how the lighter side of RC did? He'll organize the lighting harnesses for you and everything. Obviously, there's a bit of an additional cost because there's way more parts involved, but it's a great solution to making it even more plug and play than it already is. So excited about the Pitot tube in the nose as well too. All of my other aircraft have that ability to read out speed, and we use that during the landing phase, which is absolutely awesome and really helps to stay above that stall speed. Doesn't take away the fact that you're still flying the airplane, but it's a nice bit of information that's really helpful. So that's it, guys. Over and out till after Tucson Jets. After Tucson Jets, we'll be getting back on the Roban Apache helicopter. We've got some other projects to wrap up, some old ones from a year or two ago, and we're gonna get started on the F-15 as well too. So lots of cool things in the queue. Thanks guys for supporting the channel. Thank you channel members for supporting the channel and getting to see the videos early. Obviously is the perk of being a channel member. Again, there's links down below if you're interested in checking that stuff out. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next video. I'm very excited to see everybody at Turbines and Tumbleweeds in Sweetwater, Texas, October 2nd to October 5th, 2025. See you there.